With pick number 144 in round 5, Sanders becomes the 5th quarterback on the Cleveland depth chart.
Despite getting picked so far back, Shedeur Sanders has been making headlines with news of a groundbreaking deal.
$250 million, which generates
Wait, what?
$14 million in commission.
He didn't ran it up.
Jesus.
Transformed how NFL contracts work, and he hasn't even taken his first snap.
But how did a 5th-round pick rookie twist the NFL's arm into such an expensive submission?
So he has leverage, and he tried to use his leverage, and he did use his leverage.
Let's get into all the details of the scandal shaking the NFL to its core. The prime equity clause. In July 2025, just months after Sanders had signed his modest 4-year, $4.6 million rookie contract with the Cleveland Browns, the story that would come to be known as the prime equity clause began innocuously. Initial social media posts and articles began suggesting that Sanders had negotiated something unprecedented in his deal, a clause that would grant him a percentage of team revenues from merchandise, sponsorships, and promotions tied to his name, image, and likeness.
The clause is called prime equity. This clause gives Sanders a percentage of revenue generated from merchandise, sponsorships, and promotions linked to his name and likeness.
Named after his father's iconic primetime nickname, the alleged prime equity clause was described as a revolutionary contract provision that would transform Sanders from a mere employee into a business partner with the Browns organization. According to the rumors, this clause would allow Sanders to earn millions from jersey sales, with some claims suggesting he had already earned $14 million from approximately $250 million in jersey sales, nearly tripling his base contract value before he had even taken a professional snap.
You already getting people buying them jerseys right now.
It's reported that his jersey sales have reached $250 million, which generates him
Wait, what?
$14 million in commission.
The timing of these tales was particularly significant and strategically perfect for maximum viral impact. They emerged just as the NFL season was beginning, coinciding with the Browns' early struggles, and Sanders' limited role as a third-string quarterback behind veterans Joe Flacco and Dillon Gabriel. For fans who had believed in Sanders' potential and critics who had suggested his draft slide was unfair, the prime equity clause story provided a satisfying narrative. The young quarterback had outsmarted the system, turning his late draft position into a financial advantage that would make him one of the richest players in the league.
Paid more than any first-round pick.
Thanks.
The story gained initial credibility through what appeared to be legitimate legal analysis and professional commentary. Law firms and sports business websites began publishing detailed examinations of how such a clause might work within the NFL's collective bargaining agreement, discussing the potential implications for future rookie contracts and athlete compensation models. These analyses treated the clause as if it were real, adding an air of legitimacy to what was becoming an increasingly elaborate fiction. The legal discussions surrounding the alleged clause were sophisticated and detailed, examining how such an arrangement might be structured to comply with NFL rules while still providing Sanders with unprecedented earning opportunities. Some analyses suggested that the clause could be implemented as a separate licensing agreement that wouldn't violate salary cap restrictions, while others explored how it might represent a new model for athlete compensation in the NIL era. Social media amplified the story exponentially, with platforms serving as the primary distribution mechanism for what would become one of the most widespread sports hoaxes in recent memory. On platforms like X, formerly Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit, users shared articles, videos, and commentary about the prime equity clause with enthusiasm that bordered on religious fervor. The hashtags #PrimeEquity and #Shedeur Sanders began trending, with content receiving millions of views and thousands of shares from users who were either genuinely excited about the innovation or simply enjoyed participating in what they believed was a major sports story. The rumor was particularly appealing because it seemed to address several narrative threads that had been swirling around Sanders since his draft slide. For those who believed he had been unfairly treated by NFL teams, the prime equity clause suggested that he had found a way to circumvent the traditional power structure and create value for himself despite being selected in the 5th round.
That's why he got picked so far back, because apparently his agents wanted this clause in the contract.
For supporters of athlete empowerment and NIL rights, it represented a potential breakthrough in how professional athletes could monetize their personal brands. The story also played into broader cultural conversations about innovation, disruption, and challenging established systems. In an era where technology entrepreneurs and business innovators are celebrated for finding new ways to create value, the idea that a young athlete might have revolutionized contract negotiations had naturally natural appeal to audiences that admire such creativity and boldness. The story became more elaborate and detailed as it spread across different platforms and content creators. Some versions claimed that Sanders' jersey sales had reached $250 million in just a few months, an absolutely staggering figure that would have made him one of the best-selling NFL players of all time despite his backup status. Other variations suggested that the clause was causing panic among NFL owners, who were terrified that other players would demand similar provisions in their contracts. The escalating claims about Sanders' earning potential became increasingly divorced from reality, but they also became more compelling to audiences who were emotionally invested in the story. The idea that a fifth-round pick could be earning more than first-round selections through creative contract structuring was so appealing that many people seemed willing to suspend disbelief about the practical challenges of achieving such results. Some versions of the story went even further, suggesting that the prime equity clause was creating a crisis within the NFL itself. These accounts claimed that owners were holding emergency meetings to discuss how to respond to Sanders' innovation, and that some were even considering rule changes to prevent other players from negotiating similar deals. The most extreme version suggested that Sanders was being offered millions of dollars by other teams to leave Cleveland, or that the clause was causing fan boycotts and organizational chaos. The conspiracy theory reached its peak in early September 2025, just as the NFL regular season was beginning and the Browns were struggling in their early games. But the house of cards began to crumble almost as quickly as it had been built, though not before the story had achieved massive reach and cultural impact. NFL insider Ian Rappaport posted a definitive statement on social media. "This is absolutely fake. There's no such thing as a prime equity clause. How in the world does anyone think there is?" Rappaport's tweet, which received over 1 million views, marked the beginning of the end for the prime equity myth. Rappaport's intervention was particularly significant because of his reputation as one of the most reliable sources of NFL information. His categorical denial of the clause's existence carried substantial weight with both media professionals and fans, many of whom had been suspicious of the story but hadn't seen authoritative debunking from credible sources. The debunking came from multiple credible sources simultaneously, creating a coordinated effort to correct the record. Former NFL player Marcellus Wiley released a scathing video exposing the prime equity clause as completely fabricated, explaining in detail why such a clause would be impossible under the NFL's current collective bargaining agreement, and how rookie contracts are standardized to prevent exactly this type of arrangement.
I knew this was crazy. I'm glad somebody credible outside of me said it so y'all could stop talking about it. There ain't no way. Do y'all understand how the contract is? First of all, you don't even get your contract when you're drafted. You get drafted, you ain't paid. Your agent probably took care of you before that, but point being, the team ain't gave you $1.
Wiley's analysis was particularly valuable because it came from someone with direct experience in NFL contract negotiations and a deep understanding of how the league's business operations actually work.
Do y'all know how negotiations and contracts are? Have y'all ever heard of the rookie wage scale? Have you ever heard of a rookie salary cap that's built into the salary cap where these guys already get slotted based on when they're picked? Okay, do you also understand that a lot of this is standardized, and even if you want to manipulate it, you're never going to be able to manipulate it at the NFL level?
Well, if the prime equity clause doesn't exist, what then is the truth about Shedeur Sanders' draft and what is really in his contract? The draft day disaster. The 2025 NFL Draft was supposed to be Shedeur Sanders' coronation moment. Instead, it became one of the most shocking and controversial draft slides in recent memory. As the draft approached, Shedeur Sanders was widely projected as a potential first-round pick, with some analysts suggesting he could go as early as the top 10. The pre-draft process, however, is a methodical, business-focused evaluation that takes into account not just talent, but character, coachability, and fit within existing organizational structures. And what happened in the months leading up to draft day would fundamentally alter how teams viewed the young quarterback. The first warning signs emerged during the NFL Combine and individual team workouts, where Sanders made the controversial decision to refuse participating in throwing drills and on-field workouts. The decision to skip workouts was defended by Sanders and his representatives as a way to protect his draft stock and avoid potential injury, but it was interpreted by many teams as a sign of arrogance or entitlement. The real damage, however, came during individual team interviews and private workouts. Multiple reports began surfacing about Sanders' behavior during these crucial meetings. Anonymous sources described interview sessions where Sanders appeared unprepared, questioned team leadership, and seemed more interested in telling teams what they needed to do rather than demonstrating what he could bring to their organization. These reports suggested that Sanders approached team interviews with an attitude that many executives found off-putting. Rather than expressing enthusiasm for the opportunity to join their organization and contribute to their success, he reportedly came across as someone who expected teams to prove themselves worthy of him. One particularly damaging report suggested that Sanders told teams they needed to be prepared to overhaul their franchise and culture if they wanted to draft him.
If you ain't trying to change the franchise or the culture, don't get me. So you should know history repeats itself over and over and over, and I've done it over and over and over, so it should be no question why an NFL franchise should pick him. You think I'm worried about what critics say or what people gotta say? You know who my dad is? They hated on him too. So it's like, it's almost normal. Without people hating, it's not normal for us. So we like diversity, we like everything that comes with the name.
The implications of these statements were profound. NFL teams invest millions of dollars and countless hours developing their organizational cultures, coaching philosophies, and player development programs. The suggestion that a rookie quarterback might expect them to fundamentally alter their approach to accommodate his preferences, seen as presumptuous at best and delusional at worst.
The NFL wanted him to be a good old boy and go do it the way we tell you to do.
The situation became even more complicated when reports emerged about Sanders actively discouraging certain teams from drafting him. According to sources, Sanders made it clear he had no interest in backing up Lamar Jackson, effectively taking himself out of consideration for a team that had shown genuine interest. NFL teams began removing Sanders from their draft boards entirely, not because of his talent, but because of concerns about his attitude and the potential complications that might come with drafting him. The perception among NFL decision-makers was that the Sanders family believed they could dictate terms to professional organizations, an assumption that rubbed many executives the wrong way. As draft day arrived, the writing was on the wall. The first round came and went without Sanders' name being called, a shocking development for a player who many had projected as a potential top 10 pick. Then the second round passed, then the third. Each passing selection was a humbling reminder that talent alone doesn't guarantee success in the NFL, and that personality and character evaluations carry enormous weight in professional sports. The media coverage of Sanders' slide was intense and often brutal. Draft analysts who had praised his college performance were forced to reconcile their evaluations with the reality of what was happening on draft day. Social media erupted with speculation about the reasons for his fall, with theories ranging from character concerns to conspiracy theories about coordinated efforts to blackball him. It wasn't until the 5th round, with the 144th overall pick, that the Cleveland Browns finally selected Shedeur Sanders.
With pick number 144 in round 5, Sanders becomes the 5th quarterback on the Cleveland depth chart.
The Browns had traded up to make the selection, sending picks 166 and 192 to the Philadelphia Eagles to move up and secure the quarterback who had once been projected to go in the first round. In the end, what should have been a celebration became a lesson in humility, as Sanders was forced to confront the reality that his approach to the draft process had cost him millions of dollars and significantly damaged his reputation before he had even taken a professional snap.
I don't ever focus on the negative or even think about the negative because the positive happens so fast and, it's a change of emotions. For me, it was just playing quarterback. That's what it's about. You can't be up too low or anything. You gotta be able to celebrate.
The financial implications of the draft slide were staggering and life-changing. Some analysts estimated that Sanders' behavior cost him between $30, $50 million in lost draft value, as the difference between a first-round contract and a 5th-round deal is enormous. The guaranteed money alone that comes with a first-round selection can set a player up for life, while 5th-round picks receive minimal guarantees and face significant uncertainty about their long-term earning potential. His 4-year rookie contract with Cleveland was worth just $4.6 million, a fraction of what he might have earned as a first-round selection. To put this in perspective, the 10th overall pick in the 2025 draft received a contract worth approximately $25 million guaranteed, while Sanders' deal included less than $500,000 in guaranteed money. The irony wasn't lost on observers that Sanders' college NIL valuation had been estimated at $6.5 million for his final season, meaning his NFL rookie deal was actually less than what he could have earned staying in college for another year. The reaction to Sanders' draft slide was immediate and polarizing. Supporters argued that he had been unfairly targeted due to his family name, and that the slide was evidence of systemic bias against confident young black athletes. They pointed to his exceptional college performance and suggested that his confidence was being misconstrued as arrogance by predominantly white NFL ownership groups. These supporters drew parallels to other situations where black athletes had been criticized for displaying confidence or assertiveness, arguing that white white players with similar attitudes might not face the same level of scrutiny. Critics, however, argued that the slide was entirely self-inflicted and that Sanders had learned a valuable lesson about humility and respect for the process. They pointed to numerous examples of his behavior during the pre-draft process as evidence that teams were right to be concerned about his character and attitude. They argued that professional sports require a certain level of respect for organizational hierarchy, and that Sanders' apparent unwillingness to embrace that hierarchy justified teams' concerns. The conspiracy theories began almost immediately and spread rapidly across social media platforms. Some suggested that NFL owners had coordinated to blackball Sanders, though there was no evidence to support such claims. Others proposed that Commissioner Roger Goodell had pressured the Browns to select Sanders to avoid further controversy and maintain the league's image. These conspiracy theories reflected the deep mistrust that many fans feel toward NFL ownership and league management, particularly regarding issues of race and player empowerment. The idea that wealthy owners might coordinate to punish a player who challenged traditional power structures resonated with fans who viewed the NFL's treatment of players like Colin Kaepernick and other activists as evidence of systemic bias. What was clear was that the 2025 NFL Draft had fundamentally changed the trajectory of Shedeur Sanders' career, and he needed to work hard to get back on track.
Time to work is time to go. So that's all it is a football game to me, and that's how I view it. That's my personality. Is I would say, level through adversity and level through everything, any situation I'm faced with, because I know what it's going to require for me to come out on top.
Instead of entering the league as a highly touted first-round pick with immediate opportunities to compete for a starting job, he was now a fifth-round selection, facing an uphill battle to prove his worth and overcome the perception problems that had caused his dramatic fall. The rise and fall. Born on February 7, 2002 in Tyler, Texas, Shedeur Deion Sanders entered this world carrying the weight of one of the most recognizable names in football history. His father, Deion Primetime Sanders, was not just an NFL legend but a cultural icon. From the moment young Shedeur could grip a football, it was clear that the apple hadn't fallen far from the tree. At Trinity Christian School in Cedar Hill, Texas, where his father served as offensive coordinator, Shedeur began building what would become one of the most impressive high school quarterback resumes in recent memory. But this wasn't just about putting up numbers. It was about learning to perform under pressure, to handle expectations, and to develop the kind of mental toughness that separates good players from great ones. His senior year statistics were absolutely staggering. 251 completions on 366 attempts for 3,702 yards and 43 touchdowns, leading his team to victory after victory with the kind of precision and poise that made college scouts salivate. But perhaps more impressive than the raw numbers was the way he carried himself on and off the field. Even as a teenager, Shedeur displayed the kind of confidence and leadership ability that suggested he was destined for greatness. The recruiting process was a whirlwind of attention and expectations. Rated as a 4-star prospect and ranked as the number 12 quarterback in the country, Shedeur had his pick of college programs. The football establishment expected him to follow the traditional path, choose a major conference powerhouse, compete for national championships, and use that platform to launch his professional career. Instead, he made a decision that would reshape the landscape of college football recruiting and challenge conventional wisdom about the path to NFL success. But here's where the Shedeur Sanders story takes its first dramatic turn. Initially committed to Florida Atlantic University, the young quarterback shocked the college football world when he flipped his commitment to Jackson State University, an HBCU that his father had just been hired to coach. Here was a 4-star prospect, ranked as the number 12 quarterback in the country, choosing to play at a historically black college instead of pursuing the traditional path to NFL stardom. At Jackson State, Shedeur didn't just play quarterback. He became the catalyst for one of the most remarkable program transformations in college football history. After being ineligible for the spring 2021 season due to COVID-19 scheduling, he exploded onto the scene in the fall as a true freshman starter. His statistics were nothing short of spectacular. 272 completions on 413 attempts for 3,231 yards, 30 touchdowns, and just 8 interceptions across 13 games. But numbers alone don't tell the complete story of what Shedeur accomplished at Jackson State. He transformed a program that had been struggling into a national powerhouse, leading the Tigers to an 11-2 record in his freshman year and earning recognition as the SWAC Freshman of the Year and winner of the Jerry Rice Award as the top FCS freshman, the first HBCU player ever to win the prestigious honor. Sanders helped bring unprecedented media attention to Jackson Jackson State, with games that might have been relegated to obscure streaming platforms suddenly drawing national audiences. His presence attracted other talented players to the program, created new revenue streams for the university, and fundamentally changed the conversation about HBCU athletics. His sophomore year at Jackson State was even more impressive, completing 341 of 483 passes for 3,733 yards, 40 touchdowns, and just 6 interceptions. Shedeur led the Tigers to a perfect 12, one record, and a SWAC championship. His SWAC Offensive Player of the Year award and the Deacon Jones Trophy as the top HBCU player were just the icing on what was becoming a legendary college career. His completion percentage improved from 65.9% as a freshman to 70.6% as a sophomore, while his touchdown to interception ratio was otherworldly. But perhaps more impressive was his ability to perform in clutch situations, consistently leading comeback victories and demonstrating the kind of mental toughness that separates good quarterbacks from great ones. The transformation he brought to Jackson State was nothing short of miraculous. With a 23-3 record as starter, Shedeur had turned a historically overlooked program into must-see television. But success at Jackson State was just the beginning of Shedeur's college journey. When his father was hired as head coach at the University of Colorado, the family made another move that would reshape the landscape of college football. The decision to transfer to Colorado was controversial and complex. Some critics suggested that the move undermined the mission he had undertaken at Jackson State, arguing that he was abandoning HBCU football just when he had helped bring it to new heights. Others understood it as a natural progression, recognizing that the opportunity to compete at the Power 5 level would provide better preparation for an NFL career and greater visibility on the national stage. The challenges he faced at Colorado were immense and multifaceted. The Buffaloes had won just one game the season before his arrival, and the program was in complete disarray. The roster was depleted, the culture was broken, and fan expectations were at rock bottom. The offensive line was porous, the receiving corps was inexperienced, and the defense was among the worst in college football. But Shedeur Sanders had never been one to back down from a challenge, and the opportunity to rebuild a Power 5 program from the ground up was exactly the kind of test that would demonstrate his true capabilities as a leader and quarterback. In his first season at Colorado in 2023, despite playing behind one of the worst offensive lines in college football and being sacked an astronomical number of times, Shedeur managed to complete 298 of 430 passes for 3,230 yards, 27 touchdowns, and just 3 interceptions. His performance included some absolutely breathtaking moments, including a school record 510 passing yards and 4 touchdowns in a stunning upset victory over number 17 TCU. Throughout the 2023 season, despite the team's overall struggles, Shedeur consistently demonstrated his individual excellence. His ability to maintain such a low interception rate while playing behind a poor offensive line and often being forced to make quick decisions under pressure was remarkable. He showed an advanced understanding of defensive concepts, excellent pocket presence, and the ability to extend plays with his mobility when protection broke down. The 2024 season at Colorado was where Shedeur Sanders truly announced himself as one of college football's elite quarterbacks, completing 353 of 477 passes for an incredible 74.0% completion rate. He threw for 4,134 yards and 37 touchdowns while leading Colorado to a remarkable 9-4 record and an Alamo Bowl appearance. His efficiency was off the charts, and his ability to perform in clutch situations became legendary among college football fans. His Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year award and 8th place finish in Heisman Trophy voting were testament to just how dominant he had become. The Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award, given to the nation's top senior quarterback, was the cherry on top of what had been an absolutely spectacular college career. By the time he was ready to declare for the NFL draft, Shedeur Sanders had compiled statistics that were almost too good to believe. Over 50 college games, he had completed 1,267 of 1,808 passes for a 70.1% completion rate, throwing for 14,347 yards, 134 touchdowns, and just 27 interceptions. His career touchdown to interception ratio was nearly 5-1, a number that NFL executives dream about finding in prospects. The impact of his college career extended far beyond wins and losses. He had fundamentally changed conversations about HBCU athletics, demonstrated the power of personal branding in college sports, and shown that success could be achieved through non-traditional paths. His NIL deals had broken new ground in athlete compensation, and his social media presence had redefined how college athletes could connect with fans and build their personal brands. As the 2025 NFL Draft approached, Shedeur Sanders was widely regarded as one of the top quarterback prospects in the class. Some analysts projected him as a potential first-round pick, possibly even top 10, and there was genuine excitement about what he could accomplish at the professional level. His combination of accuracy, football intelligence, leadership ability, and clutch performance seemed to translate perfectly to the NFL. However, what should have been a celebration of an incredible college career and the beginning of a promising professional journey instead became one of the most controversial and dramatic draft slides in recent memory. The confident young man who had conquered college football was about to learn that the NFL plays by entirely different rules, and that sometimes talent alone isn't enough to guarantee success. For Sanders, the challenge moving forward would be to separate his actual performance and potential from the various myths and misconceptions that had become attached to his story, while also learning to navigate the increasingly complex media landscape that defines modern professional sports. If you enjoyed this video, click on the one showing on your screen to enjoy more.